Report progress.
Oh, got a little bit of feedback.
I'm hearing. Are you hearing that too? I wonder where that's coming from. Like an echo?
It's gone now,
Okay.
I think.
All right. Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to have Chris Mattison with us here tonight. Thank you so much for giving us this time to share with us your story and your journey towards being a technical architect. We're really, really excited to hear about that. And I've been actually pairing some of the new transitioners with the ones we were interviewing. And tonight I actually have Emin Hasanov to do the interviewing with you. But I guess we're gonna do tag team.
Together, yeah.
Yeah. So Emin, let me see. So he actually used to work not in the US, but maybe Emin, I'll just let you say a little bit about yourself and then you can go ahead interview Chris. How about that?
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Emin. I worked in education field for a long time, 12 years as head of school and principal in Korea and Japan. I just moved to New Jersey this summer, and also I started my Salesforce journey in around July. So yeah, we are going to be together tonight. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. So I mean, how about you go ahead and start the interview with Chris.
So Chris Mattison, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before introducing Chris, I would like to mention that today our program is going to have 3 sessions. One, the introduction part. The second one, we're going to have interview, and I think it's going to be interactive interview. So then there will be question and answers. You can write us, you can just post your questions through chat, or just in person, you can ask your questions. So yeah, I stop my sharing and I would like to introduce Chris before starting.
All right.
Yeah, Chris, could you just tell us about yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Chris Mattison. I am a senior architect, Salesforce architect at IBM. I've been working on the Salesforce platform now for 5 years, almost to the day. I just had my official 5-year anniversary earlier this week. Prior to coming to Blue Wolf / IBM, I worked in banking for about 5 years as a senior solution architect. And before that, telecommunications. My IT background, in addition to architecture, is mostly from Java development, Java and J2EE. And that's where, between those 2 disciplines, that's where the bulk of my career has been spent.
Okay. Thank you. That's nice. So could you just tell us about your meet with the Salesforce? When did you meet? When did you decide to starting with Salesforce? And I know that you have, we can see that you have a great background in IT. So it's not a big transition for you, but on the other hand, still it's a kind of different platform, the different kind of module for you. So how did you start, or how did you decide?
So my path on Salesforce really got started with my last employer. Again, I was a solution architect there. And we had a program that had a pretty decent sized Salesforce component to it. And as a lead, I kind of directed the things around the project, but I never actually touched Salesforce myself. I did have some Salesforce training But coming from, the really detailed or in-depth development background, kind of putting the piece parts for admin together just didn't really make sense to me, for whatever that's worth. But in 2016, I had an opportunity to go to Dreamforce, and I loved it. I mean, I went, and just seeing all of the technology, that was the year Einstein was introduced. Lightning was starting to take off. And so seeing all of the things that Salesforce was introducing, and just, how the technology was being used. They had the Dream Pitch competition that year with Mark Cuban, and just really seeing all the cool things that people were doing on the platform, and all of its capabilities, I found to be extremely intriguing, and it was different. And so I had an opportunity to engage with Blue Wolf, and I ran with it. And here I am 5 years later, still on the team at IBM, and getting to do things that I never thought I would get to do, and things that I didn't, quite frankly, know were possible. So,
So, is IBM a partner of Salesforce?
they are, yes.
Okay, great. So, what were your main challenges when you decided in 2016 to go to Salesforce, and how hard was it get where you are now? Like it can be in terms of technical, in terms of learning journey, whatever.
Okay, so the challenge, there were a few. First and foremost was where I was in my career at that time. I had just, I was an architect. The program that I worked on was a really big one, and that afforded me the ability to kind of learn some things really rapidly to help advance my career. And I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I had my hands in a lot of different things on top of what I guess you could say is my quote unquote day job, or was my quote unquote day job. So we had 3 Scrum teams, closing in on 30 developers. The 30 developers were across 3 different consulting companies. We had 3 architects who were full-time employees of the company. We had a couple of developers who were full-time employees of the company, interfacing with different groups. And I just kind of took on all of it. I think the simplest way to say it was I kind of imagined what I wanted my day to be like, how I imagined my job being performed. And I went to work every day and I did that. The problem is that it overextended me quite a bit, and really quickly. So at Dreamforce, my manager and I had a conversation about what made the most sense from a career perspective. And I had a few options. I had a few really good options. I could either go towards management, be a delivery manager, delivery director, whatever, or more towards enterprise architecture. And I kind of walked away from all of that to go try to figure out if I could have a career working on Salesforce and in consulting, both of which were overwhelmingly new. So I think that was the biggest challenge. It was a really big step out on a limb to go really take a few steps backwards in my career to go do something new.
Thank you. We have a question on the chat. Can you talk about what Blue Wolf? I know that I think it's IBM's partner company, or it's IBM itself.
So Blue Wolf was a Salesforce consultancy that was acquired by IBM back in 2016, 2015, I think. So I started working when I transitioned from my other job into IBM. It was still technically Blue Wolf, and then as part of eventually change of business and all of that stuff with the acquisition, and then that's how I ended up at IBM.
Okay, great. So now I know that everybody is actually interested in this question. So I would like to, you are coming from tech background. So what is your suggestion, or how do you see people comes for Salesforce from non-tech technology, not like non-tech background? So can you tell us about these?
So I think the path, if you're technical or non-technical, is the same. It really is the same. The platform is the platform. Unless you're getting into Apex and LWC right out of the gate, the technology aspects of it don't really play into learning the platform. So even with the technology background, having a really solid base of what Salesforce is and what it does and all the capabilities on it are super important. So I would say whether or not you have a technology background, or if you're coming in from a different industry, healthcare or wherever, the important part is to understand the platform and its capabilities as well as you possibly can.
Can I have a follow-up question on that?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
So let's say, because I've been hearing about this declarative program, is that what you call it?
Mhm.
If that's the extent, if that's the only extent of how we can understand the platform and do some programming in a sense, is there still a chance to get to an architect level?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. And I will counter with understanding the full capabilities of the platform at that level is the more vital set of skills for an architect over writing code.
Oh.
So the declarative or the clicks versus code aspect of Salesforce, you don't want to write any code until you've really exhausted the capabilities of the platform, and that's when Apex and LWC come into play. Most solutions, until you start talking about scale or volume, most any solution can be solved with the declarative aspects of the platform. Flows, process builders, workflow rules, approval processes, everything has its usages. And when you start to write Apex, all you're doing is really tying those things in together, or you're getting into levels of complexity that are difficult to do with the declarative tools. So I like to use the analogy, Apex is a hammer, but you really need to know what's not you can't treat everything like it's a nail. So, it might be a screw. That doesn't necessarily mean you want to pull out Apex and
Right.
and beat away at it, because it may not be the right tool.
That's a good analogy. And that gives us a lot of hope. Okay.
I will tell you what, most of the architects that I know write very little, or most of the architects that I know, a vast majority of them, don't actually write a ton of code. They are more on the declarative side. They're solution architects. And those are the people that I don't question in the room when I say this is how it works, because if we're talking about Apex, I will throw my 2 cents in, but if someone says, hey, we can do this with the flow and here's how it's going to work, okay, great. I will take your word for it. Because that's the pervasive skill set for the platform, right? So you can absolutely make it to architect with that skill set.
I'll throw this out there too. Most of my Salesforce developer friends, they said they're not writing code right now either. They're just doing clicks. So
Yeah. Yeah, I recently saw a post about that architects Google a lot.
Mhm.
That's really fun. So what is so I've been seeing solutions engineer and then architect. What is the transition like? What do the solutions engineer do that then they become architects?
So I think the nomenclature is kind of, it varies depending on the company or on the place. Generally speaking, I would think of, like a consultant or a business analyst has a really strong admin skill set. And then that group tends to evolve into more of a solution architect, right? Having a really strong understanding of the capabilities. Developers, application developers, software engineers, they go by different names, again, depending on the company. That group kind of evolves into the technical architect. The real power kind of comes into once you understand both the technical side and the solution side. So you have a really strong
Oh, okay.
understanding of the platform, and you can write code and you understand how to extend it. How do you tie Salesforce in with things outside of Salesforce, ERPs or data repositories, custom integrations? How do you integrate it? Where's the best fit? That's really where the architect job comes into play.
I see.
Great.
Do you want me to continue, Emin, or do you want
Yeah,
to proceed
actually,
with the?
there is another question. Mostly are new candidates, like mainly are really interested in learning. Like, for example, like everybody is working in different fields and they have the different kind of skill sets. And when they are choosing Salesforce, they want to bring they want to transition some of their skill sets to the Salesforce. So could you tell me, it is a little bit difficult question, I know, but like, for example, from your perspective, you brought like some, beside your tech skill set, you brought different skill sets also. So what kind of skill sets like companies are looking for when they are looking for Salesforce administrator, especially for junior level, for example, Salesforce administrators?
I think the most important thing when you're a junior resource is having a really strong growth mindset. To me, I personally speaking, I place a lot of value in when I interview people. I want to know that I don't want to know that you know everything, right? Like I'm realistic, right? I know Google exists. I would like for you to have an understanding of some really important aspects. But then I want to know what happens when you get stuck. What happens when you don't know what to do next? How are you going to handle that? And I rarely get an I don't know, but I really am more interested in hearing the thought process behind it. Instead of just saying, well, I would Google it. That's not really helpful, right? That doesn't do it for me.
At least throw in some ideas.
Yeah, just I want to know, what did you, all right, I tried these things, and I'll give a specific example, but I want to know that, what did you try? What did you find? What did you find that was close? Were you able to back yourself into a solution, or did you just go ask somebody, hey, this isn't working for me, tell me what to do? Because in IT, and this is not like unique to Salesforce, but in all things, in even not necessarily related to IT, in the professional world in general, you always encounter things that are new, that are different, that there is no book answer for, and you have to figure them out. And I personally enjoy working with the people who are willing to move mountains to find a really small solution, if that's what it takes, because you learn so much throughout that process. If you just have the book answer, you just have the book answer. If you have to go try something, you learn a lot. You understand what doesn't work, what will work. You may spark an idea for something that you want to try later. You may have a problem that fits a solution that didn't work this time, but now you have one for the next time. So having a really strong growth mindset and really thinking that way, and not just, the bare minimum, I'm just going to Google it and be done. That's personally where I place value.
That's great. That's amazing. Yeah, growth mindset is really important. Actually, it's important in all fields, but yeah, especially transitioning that one. I saw one just image about like it says that mainly entry level Salesforce administrators are saying Google is cheating. Medium levels are saying that, oh, Google is a kind of so good. But the senior ones are saying that everything is in the Google. That's great. So sometimes we are actually approaching like we don't want to face with the fears, but like, yeah, like Google is really there. And like we have to really believe ourselves and we have to find out like what can we do really, what we have actually, who we are and how can we really transition those skills. That's great. Thank you. Lori, do you have a question? Would you like to go?
I kind of want to know what's your typical day.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
then give us your advice for us newbies.
So I don't know what a typical day is because they're all different. I can tell you that on a perfect day, the first hour is the only thing that's roughly the same. And that is I sit down, I try to get an idea of what's on my plate for the day, what my priorities are, and just really make sure I just take a few minutes to get things set up, that I'm aware of what my priorities are, what meetings I have, what's important versus what's not. And then after that, it is just baseball bats and tennis rackets and fire hoses and fire extinguishers, right? Because just everything comes out of everywhere. I have my role is wide ranging. On top of being an architect, I also manage people. That has its challenges. You know, client work. You know, things happen all the time, right? With in consulting with clients and things like that. There's the kind of internal administrative aspects of my job that also sometimes come out of nowhere, or I forget about them, or I didn't, you know, lose sight of something. Like today, I had to rush and do my maintenance exams because they expire next week, so I had to get that out of the way, right?
Yeah.
Before I get nasty grams, because I fully expect to get them anyway, because I waited so long. But you know, the typical day just doesn't, for me, it doesn't exist. It's just really, for me, as long as I'm organized enough to keep everything in front of me, so that nothing gets lost. That's really what I aspire to do every day.
And so what advice would you give us newbies?
Find a system that works for you and stick to it. Find a system that works for you. My New Year's resolution was to be better organized, because I'm not the most organized person in the world. What really hampered that was my office was in total upheaval until about 3 weeks ago. So I now share an office with my wife. And while we were, you know, we've had some things going on in, you know, in our personal lives that have taken priority over finding a painter to paint the office, right? So that for a long time, the office was just a mess. My whiteboards were down. I didn't realize how much I rely on my whiteboards until they weren't up. And then it was just, things were everywhere, all over the place. But I've been working through what are some organizational tools and tips that work for me, that I find helpful, so that I have a running log of things I eventually want to try or want to look into or want to research or want to read, or I can go back to, if I, you know, fall off the wagon for a month or not a month, or a week or two, I can go back to and say, you know what, I was really focused in on this week. I really need to focus in on this week. You know, I'm going to take this thing that I did a month ago and I'm going to use it this week because it was really helpful and it helped me keep things really organized. So find whatever system works for you and make it work for you. The other thing I would say is to continually learn new ways of doing things you already know. Where I struggle with, I'll take content creation as an example. I really struggle with writing posts that are related to Salesforce, because for me, I think about, is what I'm about to write too simple? Am I going to write something that somebody's going to say, why did you bother with keystrokes for that? We all know that, right? Or you don't care because you're not on the Salesforce platform. Sometimes I think about, how would I do that differently? What are some things that, if I had to do it again, what are some things I've done in the past? If I had to do it again, I would improve it. And here's how I would improve it. Those are the things that sometimes just get clogged up in my brain. I can't get them out. But learning them, again, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with growth mindset. When you try things, you figure out what doesn't work and why. And it's a better learning exercise than just reading the documentation or Googling something.
Right. I think writing really, I don't know, there's some more aspect to learning when you try to put down in words
Yes.
the ideas that you have in your head. So.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And I'm not good about not being a perfectionist. And don't be a perfectionist. Sometimes good enough is good enough.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Chris, and thank you also, Emin, for doing the most of the interviewing. And
and Lori, thank you guys so very much for having me. I was really excited to do this, and a little nervous, but I've never been interviewed before like this. So
well, it's fun hearing from different aspects of Salesforce and different professionals, and I actually just realized tonight that solutions is different from technical. I really thought there was like, okay, solutions engineer, then you become a technical architect, but apparently it's like a diverging direction.
Yes, and then to make it even more confusing, the Salesforce CTA designation kind of takes them both and marries them back together.
Okay. So many things to learn.
So many
All
things
right. Okay. Do other people here have any more questions? If not, well, if you have questions, I don't see any more in the chat. Okay, I think we can proceed to wrap it up. And well, thank you so much, Chris. And it's been a pleasure meeting you, knowing you,
It's been a pleasure
knowing
meeting
more
you
about
too. Meeting you too,
journey.
finally.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you,
Thank you.
Emin,
Thank
too.
you. Have a good
Thank
night,
you for
everyone.
everyone who came.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.